Hey, welcome back. This is Michael again. I want to continue. I had a few more thoughts about this morning as I was out and about. One of my previous videos here, we talked about the concept of original sin and how that is a theological construct that is not biblical per se. That is not a teaching of Jesus per se. That comes from the concept of original sin, comes from St. Augustine, as does the concept of hell. You pair those two together, that if you do not rely on the church for salvation through Jesus Christ, and that the church is your conduit for that, to absolve you and forgive you for your sin, then you will spend an eternity in hell. That's all coming from a place of shame and fear. It's shame-based, fear-based belief systems and ideology that get entrenched in a lot of people's subconscious based on what they were taught and experienced in their younger portions of life and through the collective of Western civilization and this Christian theological overlay that exists. We talked about what the word sin means, but as I was thinking about this a little bit more, I wanted to go back and revisit an aspect of it. So, in the Greek, we have this word. This is the transliteration, of course. Hamartia. Right? This literally means, this is translated to miss the mark. Now, this is the way I was taught that this harmatia, the Greek word, this transliteration gets translated to the word sin in the New Testament. And it means to miss the mark. And if you go and you look at some of the root etymology of the words and you look at the Greek lexicons, etc., it's to miss, to fail, to go wrong, to err, an error in judgment, to miss the target, right? And the concept of an archer is used a lot. That comes from Greek understanding as well. So we talked about, we have the target here, right? We have the bullseye in the middle. This is your target. And interestingly, all of this is your target. So you can miss the target because if you're aiming here for the bullseye and you hit one of these X's that we had gone through in the previous video, right? Well, you missed the target. That's sin. That's it. It's that simple. Or maybe you missed the target entirely because you were way off, right? That's still missing the target. And it's just to what degree did you miss the target? Now, one thing that I really like about this is if you miss a target in life, if you have a goal, if you have something that you're trying to do, something you're trying to achieve, a certain way of being even, I want to be a better parent, I want to be a better father, better mother, better daughter, better sister, better brother, whatever it is, a better employee, better this or that, right? It's going to take some practice. Life is about practice. It's about having experiences. Sometimes you get lucky and you hit the mark on the first time. But to be able to repeat that behavior takes practice. To be able to hit the target with consistency takes practice. So what does an archer do? Say I'm the archer. This is my target. That target can be whatever thing in our life that we want to improve. Whether that thing appears to be an external thing that we want to improve, all change actually happens from the internal out, right? So it could come from that aspect, Or it could come from the aspect of you as the archer. You're going to stand back, and this is really dating me, of course, but I love the Wii. And remember, they had archery on the Wii. And with archery, you had two hand controls. You had one control here and one control here, and you would pull back on it. And then you would aim in a different way, right? This is the same analogy. Whatever your target is out here, again, it could be an actual external thing, or it could be a part of your being that you want to become better at. Like for myself, it used to be I wanted to feel like I was more aligned with what it meant to be masculine. I didn't understand the concepts between masculine and feminine, which are really just energies. And we're not going to get into that here, but that was something that is very internal. But you practice that internal thing through external means in the world, right? You bring it out into the world in different ways. If I'm an archer and I pull back, I let go, I miss the target. Maybe I miss it way over here, right? Well, that's okay. I'm just going to have to correct that. Now, what do I correct? Do I correct mowing this way? Maybe I need to go up a little. Maybe I need to go down a little. Maybe when I draw back, maybe I'm holding too long on the drawback, right? Maybe my elbow is down here and it's throwing it off. Maybe it's way up here and it's off. So there's multiple places that have to be refined, that have to be worked through in order to be able to hit the target consistently. And anything that is not hitting the target, whether that target for you happens to be the bullseye in the middle or just the target in general, any deviation from that is missing the mark. And that's all sin is missing the mark. Now, what I noticed, what I thought about this morning was generally, not all the time, but generally when we are missing the mark, we are missing the mark because we are out of alignment, right? We're doing something from our ego as opposed to from our true spiritual alignment. And the reason why I say not all the time is because even when you're doing some things, certain things from your spiritual alignment, from a spiritually aligned place, it still may require practice in order to hone that skill and consistently be able to hit the mark. But what I see happen a lot of times too is we're missing the mark because ego is driving everything. So you're operating from ego would be a different state of consciousness and a different place of identity than operating from a non-egoic place. What I find interesting about this is that if I'm the archer and I'm pulling back to hit a specific target, right? That I am the one that has to make the correction. Romans 12:2 states, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Right? Transformation is a change. And you make this change by renewing your mind, by thinking in a different way, by perceiving in a different way. But the responsibility for that is yours. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Is a very personal thing. Only you can do it. Only I can alter this. Now, I can have a guide, I can have a teacher come and teach me and say, well, you're missing the mark here because your elbow's too low, right? Adjust your elbow up, relax, and a coach, a teacher can help guide you through that. But ultimately, you're the one that has to do it. Ultimately, you are the one that is going through the practice of it to make it happen. checking to see if my mic was on there. And what I find so interesting about the theology that Christianity has built is that they're saying you can't do anything, even though sin is just missing the mark. It's saying you yourself are absolutely powerless to do anything about it, right? You have to take and ask Jesus into your heart and be washed in the blood of Jesus so that his blood can cleanse that sin from you. And only then can you hit the mark. But if we're talking about transformation here, if we go back to our concept of an archer here, this would be like, I have a particular goal in mind. I have a particular way of being in mind, right? I know what the target is. I know where it is. And I'm shooting and I'm shooting and I'm trying to get to it. And I'm getting a little bit better, but I'm just not quite getting the target like I want, right? So I'm in sin because I'm missing the mark, right? I'm missing the thing that I want to be aligned to. That's what a lot of this archery concept comes down to. Your alignment of everything, right? In relation to the target. And if I just hand that over to somebody else, say the coach's name, say the archery coach's name is Jesus. And I'm like, you know what, man, I can't do this. Like, no matter what, I just can't do this because I've been born into this thing called original sin, which means I'm always going to miss the mark no matter what. Right? So since I can't do this, I'm just going to hand the bow and arrow. And ironically, I had no idea I was going to be talking about this today, but here's my recurve bow and arrows right here, you know? Ironically, if I just hand my bow and arrow over to my coach, Jesus, and say, Jesus, take the wheel, right? And then Jesus steps up there and boom, he hits it. He hits the target because Jesus is perfect, right? How has that helped me? How has that benefited me? All I did was abdicated myself of the practice and the discipline and the effort, right? That is necessary in order for me to hit the target. I just said, you know what? There's nothing I can do about this. I'm helpless. I'm worthless. Yeah, Jesus, would you please just take over and shoot the target for me, hit the right place? Oh, thanks. All right, I'm going to go back to watching TV now. You know, that's the mentality. And we would never do that with anything in life. With most things in life, hopefully we don't. So why are we taught to just absolve ourselves, understand that in your depraved human nature, in your being born into original sin, that you're never really going to be able to hit the target? That's the thing that always confused me so much, as they would talk about being perfect, like Jesus is perfect. And yet on the other hand, in the next sentence, they turn around and tell you, you can't ever be perfect like Jesus because you're not Jesus. Even after you've been washed in the blood of Jesus and confessed Jesus' name, you're still not perfect like Jesus. So you're still not going to be hitting the mark. It's all these confounded teachings that don't make any sense. And so why would we, when sin is just to miss the mark, why would we ever just turn that and absolve our responsibility and turn it over to somebody else and say, here, you handle this. I can't, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to be able to do this. So you just take it. It would be like me learning martial arts and just saying to my instructor, and you know, after a while of working on some particular thing or whatnot, finally just saying to my instructor, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to get this. And I don't want to practice it anymore because no matter how much I practice, it's not going to be perfect. So I'm just going to give up now. But, you know, I'm going to allow you to come in and I'm just going to ask you into my heart as my martial arts instructor and say, would you come into my heart and would you take over for me? Because I can't do it. And then what? What have I learned from that? I'm just going to have my instructor do everything that my instructor is trying to convey and teach me how to do? Doesn't make any sense. The alignment thing here is a big deal. This is the point that jumps out to me the most. And I want to go back here and take a look at this just a little bit more. This is about a misalignment. We've already talked about hamartia as missing the mark, right? Or to err, an error in judgment. The reason why you're missing the mark is because you're erring in judgment in some capacity. And how do you correct that? Right? There's many, many different ways to correct that, but it all involves you. It doesn't involve you just handing over all responsibility to somebody else. It goes back to that Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? You want a new life and a new way of being, it is up to you to do that inner work with the wisdom and with the knowledge and with the knowing and with the help of the Spirit and of the Christ within, however you want to term that, with the I am that lives within you. I want to take a look here in just a moment of, in classical Greek, hamartia just meant you missed the mark. It was missing the target. There was an error in judgment. But in church theology, it became moral guilt. It became some offense against God. It became inherited corruption, i.e., you are born into sin. It's the original sin that you're tainted with because of the actions of Adam and Eve. And then church theology also combines that sin with, therefore, because you've missed the target, you are going to face eternal punishment. Unless you get it together and absolve yourself and realize there's nothing you can do to make things right. There's nothing you can do to get into alignment except to turn everything over to Jesus and say, Jesus, just please take care of this for me, right? And that is a complete abdication again of your responsibility. There was something else I wanted to say right there. It's not coming to mind right now. But ultimately, you are the one that is responsible, right? You can get guidance from a real person. You can get guidance from spirit on how do you correct your aim? How do you shift something in your life that you want to shift? How do you make this transformation so that you may renew your mind? How do you go through that process? But you're the one that has to do it. You're the one that's ultimately responsible. In order to align yourself with whatever target it is that you are going after. You can't just simply turn it over to another. This is the part here that brings up a lot of responsibility here. Looking at this, we become better people. We become better versions of ourselves by sticking with it. And by even when we don't know what to do, then we seek help from another individual who has more experience in that, or who has a different lens to look through. That they say, hey, maybe try this time. Oh, you know what? If I alter this, if I change this, that helps a ton. And I get closer to the target. And eventually then you're hitting your target and you're hitting your mark. So sin has been blown up into this big, huge, disproportionate thing. When it's in truth a very simple concept. And then it got aggregated out by people like St. Augustine and others after him, where sin became transformed into a very derogatory type condition, human condition, where you were born into original sin. And if you didn't rectify that sin, and the only way to rectify it was through the church and then through Jesus Christ, if you didn't rectify that, then there was always the fear, the shame-based fear, right? I'm a worthless sinner. I need to correct this. Otherwise, I'm going to spend eternity in hell being tortured forever and burning and all the other stuff that they teach. All of this stuff became confounded with one another. And all of it is antithetical to what Jesus actually came to speak about. Jesus came to speak about internal sovereignty. Jesus came to speak about your oneness with all, your oneness with Source, with God, however you want to term that, right? Jesus came to speak against rules and dogma and virtue signaling, which is the big thing that's stated today, right? Jesus would say to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he would say as he's teaching people, don't stand out in public and pray on the street corners like the Pharisees do. That was virtue signaling. The Pharisees were saying, oh, look at me, la, 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 I'm so divine, I'm so pious, blah, blah, blah. And Jesus is saying, don't do that. Don't do that at all. Go into your closet, i.e., of your own accord, in your own space, go within the closet here within your mind, right? And connect. Nobody else needs to even know that you're doing that. Because it all comes down to what's your motive for doing that, right? Is your motive to look at me? Everybody look at me, look how pious I am, look how religious I am, look how spiritual I am. And that's one thing in my own life I've had to adjust my target on. I took a lot of stuff that was from my religious world and it shifted over into my spiritual world and became not so much about punishment, but there were still a lot of things driving my decisions and driving the actions and driving where I was going that was coming up from my subconscious that was basically trying to find some sense of worth by saying, I only have value, I only have worth if I'm helping other people all the time, if I do some type of vocation that is helping people. Otherwise, I've missed the mark and I've just let everybody down and I've let God down and everything. That's all an overlay from old religious conditioning and programming that I overlaid on the spiritual programming and spiritual life, I guess. And now I've finally gotten to a point where I've been able to hone in a little bit more on that target and go, wait a minute, I am valuable regardless. And I ultimately get the choice. I ultimately get to choose, and there is no right or wrong in how I choose. It is up to me to determine what is my target. And how do I want to go about achieving whatever that target is? Whether that's a physical thing out here or whether that's some internal thing. I want to be better about, maybe a person struggles with their temper. And so They need to work through whatever that is. They need to become more aligned and transform themselves by the renewing of their minds so that they can better hit this target of being a better person, a better version of themselves that lives from a place of higher consciousness, that lives up here, gravitating more to a place of living from love, which is what Jesus was all about and what God is truly all about, right? Than living from a place that is based in shame and fear. So that's a little bit more for you to chew on this afternoon. And blessings and love to each of you.